there guys, this is Rickles with WTBGold, and at last year's BlizzCon, the devs told us that leveling to max in Shadowlands would be 60 to 70% faster than it is right now.
60 to 70% faster to level.
So that's what this video is all about. I mean, people like Mephisto have actually done it on the alpha and beta, and personal speedrun record from 12 hours down to 4 hours. So it's definitely faster and definitely possible. But what about for people who aren't madmen and have every quest in the game memorized? What about for us mere mortals? How fast will Shadowlands leveling be really? To test this and figure it out, I picked 3 different power leveling methods available to anyone, and so questing, dungeons, and then the super sneaky best methods, and I copied characters from live over to beta, and then I did an hour of each method on live, and then an hour over on the beta, and that's what we're going to... So let's get into it. Method number 1, questing. For this one, I picked the Night Elf starting zone, and I just went for it. On live, I got to level 18, but the first thing I noticed was that I was leveling so quickly that the ding, like I was dinging every 3 minutes, and honestly, I stopped noticing the ding, and that kind of made me sad. I feel like that's an important, I mean, you know, whenever we have a birthday, like I just dinged. So I think that should be an important part of the game. Over on the PTR, there were 4 things that I noticed right off the bat. First off, no AoE looting. That was weird. Even when I turned on auto looting, I still had to loot each body individually. That turned on randomly at level 8, but then it turned off again later on. I sincerely hope it's just a bug or I messed up my settings somehow. I don't know. The second thing I noticed was that heirlooms had been totally redesigned. So the way heirlooms work now is if you have the rings, you can have a maximum of 55% bonus XP per kill and quest turn in. Without the rings, it's 45%. But they've been buffed in Shadowlands, kind of. So that's gone. You get the same XP as normal, but you get rested XP 60% longer. So essentially, let's math this out. The maximum amount of rested XP you can have is 150% of your current level. So times plus 60%. So you can have essentially a maximum of 2.5 levels of XP saved up. So is this a nerf? Is this a buff? I don't know. I think they're just redesigning it. So they're disincentivizing you from getting all your leveling done in one go and instead breaking it up into chunks. If you're hanging out in a city, it takes 10 days to save up that much rested XP. So just every 10 days, do 10 levels, and you'll get less time /played than you would in BFA. The third thing I noticed was how I killed a little mini-boss at the end, a little corrupted tree named Oakenscowl. I wrote down each individual ability I used to kill him. It was Moonfire, Sunfire, Star Surge, Wrath, 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 Wrath. So, on the PTR, I tried to do the same thing, but after Moonfire, I couldn't do Sunfire because I didn't know Sunfire yet. I wasn't high enough level. You don't learn Sunfire until the equivalent of, like, Burning Crusade Zone. Sunfire doesn't AoE until, what is that, Kata. I tried to do Star Surge, but you don't learn that until the equivalent of Mop. Beyond that, you don't learn Starfall until the equivalent of, like, Warlords of Draenor. You're almost done leveling before you learn Boomkin's basic AoE. So I finished up questing somewhere around level 11.3. Great, cool, we have data. The problem is we don't know how to interpret that data because everything has been rescaled. All in all, in BFA, we got 18 levels, and on the PTR, we got the equivalent of about 22 levels. So let's just say it's about 20% more efficient. Questing will be a little bit more efficient. The next method I used is dungeons, and there's lots of different variations on this. You can either run dungeons with your friends, spam dungeons and pugs, freehold power leveling, dungeon carries. So to test this, I did a monk method it's a little sneaky. You and a monk go into stockades, and the monk runs around and gathers up all the enemies, and then brings them back and drops a monk statue, and then goes and hides in a corner. The person being carried uninvites the monk, tags everything, and then re-invites the monk so they don't get kicked out of the dungeon. Essentially, the person being carried is doing all the damage. They're doing all the work. The only thing they're not doing is taking any damage because the monk statue is holding aggro, but it doesn't generate threat. If Blizz wanted to nerf this, they just have to make the monk statue generate threat, but that would open up a whole new can of worm for farmers who want easy access to tags. Now, this video took a little longer than I expected in order to make it because I've spent the past 3 weeks trying to figure out whether or not this is considered an exploit. I've been in talks with GMs and let me speak to your manager, let me speak to your manager, let me speak to your manager, just moving up the ladder, trying to get an answer. And their official statement after 3 weeks and multiple GMs, their official statement is they're not allowed to say. They did give me the good advice of if you think something's an exploit, then don't do it. But the problem with that is, as a content creator, like, let's say the most sure I could ever be that anything is an exploit, or that anything is safe, is like I could be 99.9% sure that something's safe, right? Like, I'm almost positive that no one could get in trouble for this, but it's impossible to be absolutely 100% positive. Well, the problem with that is being 99.9% sure, this channel just passed 20 million views. Woo! So that means at that means that 0.1% is 20,000 people's accounts. After all this, I did uncover something kind of weird. The terms of service define cheating as anything not expressly authorized by Blizzard. When I ask them for express authorization, they say they're not allowed to expressly authorize. So it is impossible for us to abide by the terms of service because we have no way of ever learning whether or not something... We have no way of getting authorization, and anything that we don't get authorization on is cheating. There's something really wrong there, but I don't know what it is, and I feel like if I talk any more about it, it's like a legal problem. So I'm just gonna put this up in the air. If anyone from Blizzard is watching, hey, talk to us. So, on live, I was getting about 1.5 levels for killing the trash, and then 1 level for killing the bosses. On the PTR, I got 2.25 levels for killing the trash and the bosses, and that's crazy, because those 2.5 levels that I got on the PTR, those Shadowlands levels mean more. Each level is the equivalent of 2.5 BFA levels. So, leveling in dungeons is gonna be about twice as good. I did notice something else really important here, and this is probably one of the biggest overarching ideas that I noticed from my testing. First time, I went through, no issues, in about 10.5 minutes, I killed everything and got the 2 levels from it, but the second time I tried it, I couldn't kill them. I had leveled twice without getting any gear increases. And because there are fewer levels now, it's a sharper, you feel the power decrease at each level. In any dungeon that you guys run, you're gonna have about a 25% chance of not getting any gear. So if you just get a little unlucky and you don't get gear for a couple dungeons in a row, you're going to be so much weaker. Fights are gonna last longer. Healers are going to more often. You're going to have more wipes. That's not a bad thing. I think it's good when dungeons are a little bit harder. I think dungeons are a little bit too easy, but that's totally subjective. Just be aware that dungeons will be slightly less of a cakewalk if you're an experienced player. All right, and finishing up with the best power leveling strategy in the Shadowlands patch is, anyway, Warlords of Draenor treasure. I went out to Warlords of Draenor, I leveled a tune around, it took me about 2.5 hours. I tried to do the same thing on the PTR, and I was fine. Blah, 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 Blizz nerfed it. They nerfed the treasures and the bonus objective XP. So don't worry about those anymore. They're not any good. But what is good is the other best method of power leveling. Some of y'all know this, and I'd be willing to bet some of y'all don't know that this is the best method for power leveling, and that's pet battles. Run-of-the-mill, open-world pet battles. So, just looking at the map, each pet battle in WoW gives you 13% of a level. That's about 1/7 of a level per pet battle. So that means in 7 pet battles, you can get a level. So great. Cool. How quickly can you do pet battles? Well, there are certain areas in the game where the open world battle pets force spawn. Like, you beat the first one and it despawns, and then you beat all the others, and if you beat enough other ones, then that first one automatically appears again, and so you can just go around in a circle battling them all over and over and over. And with the right team comp, you can beat those open world pet battles in 30 seconds. So if you can get 120 kills per hour, then that makes this a 15 level per hour method. That's great. That means you can get 1 to 120 in 8 hours, 9 hours, something like that. But over on the PTR, we would expect this 13% to get scaled down to somewhere around 5% per level, but they're not 5% per level. It's each pet battle on Shadowlands is 10% of a level, which means you can get a level every 5 minutes. That's 12 levels per hour, and that means if you hustle through questing through a starting zone and then you knock out the rest through pet battles, you can get into Shadowlands in under 4 hours, and that's anybody. As long as you have a couple good max level pets, anyone can get out into Shadowlands in 4 hours if you hustle. That's all I have.